Hello, I'm Kamal, CEO of Skymeter. I'm going to talk for a moment about the future of mobility. Before I do that, I should tell you that Skymeter is a smart metering company for cars and trucks. Now, we're not actually mobility experts. We don't do anything with transport policy, etc. But we've been very lucky because we provide a unique piece of technology. So the real mobility experts around the world have been coming to us and talking to us about their plans and sharing their thoughts because our technology is an essential piece of that. So I'd simply like to share some of what we've heard from other people, such as Cisco Korea, great studies out of New York City, such as the Kiel Report, etc., about what they're thinking the future of mobility looks like. Now, if you look at mobility today, and think about it, there's really 4 ways you can move people around a city. The first one is biking and walking, self-powered. The second option, which is the most common option, is private cars. And the third option is a shared vehicle, either public transport or actually a shared car. Now, if you think about it, the fastest way to travel, of course, is in a private car. The slowest is biking and walking. And the impact on the environment of using a private car, not just on the environment, but on everyone around you, the impact on anyone else on a road from using a private car is significantly higher than biking, walking, or shared transport, which comes in the middle. Now, what's really interesting is if you look at it, is you think of the world today, most people drive their own cars. There is a reason for that. Yeah, it's faster, it's more convenient. But if you look at the costs, it's also actually cheaper to drive your own car because most of us, we own our car already. We've paid for the car, we've paid for our insurance for the year. What do we need to do to drive? You stick a little bit of gas in, you jump in, you drive. So if you look at the cost per kilometer of driving, it's about 10 cents a kilometer. Compare that to public transit, which is more like 30 cents a kilometer. Or shared cars, which besides being inconvenient, if you're going to cover someone else's insurance and car costs, that can get quite expensive. Of course, it's still free to bike or walk. It doesn't take you very far. But if you think about it also, biking or walking is a luxury you can only do if you can afford to live close to work. And guess what? If you factor in the cost of living close to work, it's actually most expensive at all. So no wonder mobility looks like it does today, with jammed roads, with everyone in their private cars trying to get where they're going. It's the cheapest way around. A simple change, changing the incentives, can totally transform mobility patterns. So what some people have been looking at, they've been saying, look, if we could somehow change this picture and make driving, which is a pain today, sitting in traffic, fighting for parking spots, make it a pleasure. If we have transit, which is today's last resort, if we could magically make it a first choice, that'll give some of those driving benefits. And if we can take the other modes of transport, which are uncommon today, and make them more common, again, this will all contribute to making driving a pleasure. A simple policy measure which has been suggested, New York, the Kiel Report, said that you can do this by taking public transit, which is currently paid, and making it free. And take public roads and public parking, which are often free today, and make them paid. Simple change will completely transform the experience for everyone on the road, especially the drivers. So how do we make driving a pleasure? Well, let me first imagine what that looks like. A pleasant driving experience is one where there's no traffic jams, where there's parking always available, and where there are good, safe roads in full repair all the time. Well, that's a very easy process. In-car meters, such as Skymeter, part of an overall system, allows the elimination of traffic jams. It also allows parking to always be available by doing suitable parking pricing. So the people who are staying longer move off the street. Make sure there's spots always available on street for short stay visitors. Good safe roads comes from actually linking the financing of the roads to their usage, which is very easily done again through a metering system. So that's how you make driving a pleasure. How about making transit the first choice? Well, the first question, of course, or the first thing suggested was to make public transit free. Now, of course, you may charge a small amount for subways during rush hour, but the bottom line is, nothing like making something free to have people want to use it. And one of the things they've studied the finances of this in detail in New York City. And they said, in New York, which has a lot of public transit usage, they could make public transit free with an average charge of on the order of $6 per driver. Of course, the drivers get a better experience. They get roads, which are going to work for them. So it works for us as drivers, it works for us as transit users. Some other things suggested as well, transit information, having a handheld available that you can always get all the information you need on when the next bus is coming, how quickly you can get where you're going with different modes of transport, and also a mobility fare card that you can use the same card on the bus, on a subway, and in fact, even with your in-car meter to pay for all usage anywhere you go. How do you get car sharing increased? Well, the first thing is change incentives. As soon as the costs are variable, public roads, usage-based insurance, maintenance, if you can even have a maintenance contract on your car which is variable using a meter like Skymeter, it really encourages people to think more about sharing. You can also think about taking car rental and moving to a car sharing model. Now you've already got things like Zipcar, but you can really, using a meter like Skymeter, have renting be a thing of the past. And everyone just jumps in a car, uses it for what they need it for. Maybe you don't even have to return to the same spot. With suitable back-end information systems, you can leave it where you're going and have the next person pick it up from there. Lastly, talking about matching systems, IT, there's a number of companies who are looking at having matching drivers with vehicles. Walk-in biking, again, changed incentives make a big difference. Public bike sharing, there's some wonderful programs out there. And of course, funding is the magical question. Where do you get it to improve bike paths, etc.? Unlike all these other plans which dream and say, look, we can transform the world if only the government could find the money to do it. This is an overall plan which actually brings its own funding with it. So, one simple change can transform mobility in a city, transform the experience of living in that city. Taking public transit from paid to free, and taking public roads, public parking, from free to paid. We'll take driving, which is a pain today, and make it a pleasure, an absolute joy. We'll take transit, a last resort, and make it the first choice of many more people. Lastly, the overall picture will take other modes of transport which are uncommon today and make them more common. It's an overall picture of how you can change mobility in a city and how you can make getting around a pleasure, and traffic jams something which your grandchildren will ask you, what's that?